America's aircraft carriers are the backbone of its global military power. Each one costs over $13 billion and carries more firepower than many entire air forces. Yet the US Navy operates exactly 11 carriers, no more, no less. So why did the US settle on exactly 11? The real reason reveals how America maintains naval dominance across the entire planet. The reason the United States Navy operates 11 aircraft carriers is not just strategy or tradition, it is actually written into US federal law. In 2007, the US Congress passed legislation requiring the Navy to maintain at least 11 operational aircraft carriers. This requirement is written in Title 10 of the United States Code, Section 8062, which outlines the minimum size of the Navy's carrier fleet. The law exists because aircraft carriers are considered the backbone of American global military power. Why did Congress make this rule? The answer lies in how important carriers are to US military operations. An aircraft carrier acts like a floating airbase, capable of launching airstrikes anywhere in the world without needing permission from another country. According to the US Navy, a typical carrier strike group includes one nuclear-powered carrier, around 75 aircraft, guided missile cruisers, destroyers, and attack submarines. This entire force can operate independently for months while projecting military power thousands of miles from US shores. The importance of this law became clear in 2012 when the Navy retired the USS Enterprise, the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. When it left service, the fleet temporarily dropped from 11 carriers to 10. That situation triggered concern in Congress and among defense planners because the legal requirement had technically been broken. To restore the number, the Navy accelerated preparations for the next-generation carrier, USS Gerald R. Ford. The ship officially entered service in 2017, bringing the fleet back to the legally required level of 11 carriers. The Congressional Research Service reported that maintaining this number ensures the Navy can meet global deployment demands despite long maintenance cycles and training periods. But the law itself is only part of the story. Congress didn't choose the number 11 randomly. The figure reflects a deeper military strategy. Aircraft carriers are the centerpiece of American military strategy because they allow the United States to project power anywhere in the world without relying on foreign bases. A nuclear-powered carrier can sail for decades without refueling and operate in international waters. This gives Washington the ability to respond quickly across the globe. Each U.S. carrier leads a carrier strike group, one of the most powerful naval formations ever created. At the center is the aircraft carrier itself, which typically carries around 75 aircraft. These include FA-18 Super Hornet fighter jets, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, E-2D Hawkeye airborne radar planes, and MH-60 Seahawk helicopters. Together, these aircraft provide air superiority, surveillance, electronic warfare, and strike capability hundreds of miles from the ship. But the carrier does not operate alone. The presence of a standard carrier strike group usually includes one guided missile cruiser, 2 to 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and at least one nuclear attack submarine provide missile defense and anti-submarine protection. Plus, it helps with long-range strike capability using Tomahawk cruise missiles, which can hit targets over 1,000 miles away. This combination allows a single carrier group to function like a floating military base. According to the US Navy, a carrier air wing can launch over 120 combat sorties per day during sustained operations. That level of air power can influence events far inland, even when the ship remains hundreds of miles offshore. Because of this capability, the United States maintains carrier presence in several key regions. The Western Pacific is critical for monitoring China and supporting allies such as Japan and South Korea. The Middle East often hosts US carriers during tensions with Iran. Meanwhile, the Mediterranean Sea allows quick access to Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Recent deployments show how important this flexibility is. In 2023 and 2024, US carriers like USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Dwight D. Eisenhower were deployed to the Mediterranean and Red Sea during regional crises. This provides rapid military options without the need for new bases. However, there's a critical limitation most people rarely consider. One of the biggest reasons the US Navy needs 11 aircraft carriers is the maintenance cycles. A carrier cannot operate non-stop. These massive ships require constant repairs, upgrades, and inspections to stay combat-ready. A typical carrier follows a long operational cycle called the Optimized Fleet Response Plan. Under this cycle, a carrier usually deploys for about 6 to 8 months, followed by months of training and maintenance before the next deployment. During maintenance periods, engineers repair engines, update electronics, inspect nuclear systems, and overhaul flight decks. But the biggest downtime comes from something called refueling and complex overhaul. Nuclear-powered carriers must undergo this once in their 50-year lifespan, usually around the 25-year mark. The process refuels the nuclear reactors and upgrades nearly every major system on the ship. According to the US Naval Sea Systems Command, this overhaul can take 4 to 5 years and cost around $3 to $4 billion. Because of these long maintenance cycles, not every carrier is available for combat at the same time. Out of 11 total carriers, typically 2 to 3 are deployed, 2 to 3 are ready for training, and 4 to 5 are in maintenance or overhaul. In other words, the Navy needs a larger fleet simply to ensure a few carriers are always ready when crises erupt. Now this raises an important question. What happens if the fleet drops to 10? Dropping from 11 to 10 aircraft carriers may sound small, but strategically it creates a major problem. Because of maintenance and training cycles, only about 1/3 of US carriers are deployable at any given time. According to the US Congressional Budget Office, the Navy typically has 3 to 4 carriers ready for deployment out of its entire fleet. If the fleet dropped to 10, that number could fall closer to 2 or 3 available carriers, which is not enough to sustain global presence. The US military usually needs continuous carrier presence in the Western Pacific and the Middle East, two of the world's most tense regions. When the Navy temporarily fell to 10 carriers after USS Enterprise retired in 2012, deployments were extended and maintenance schedules were strained. At the same time, China now operates 3 aircraft carriers and continues expanding its navy. So another question naturally follows. Why not simply build more carriers? The newest US carrier, the Gerald R. Ford class, costs about $13.3 billion to build. But the price doesn't stop there. Each carrier needs an air wing of about 75 aircraft, which can add $5 to $6 billion more. Operating a carrier strike group costs roughly $6 to $7 million per day. Manpower is another major challenge. A single carrier requires about 4,500 sailors and aviators, and expanding the fleet would require thousands more trained personnel. Carriers also need escort ships like destroyers, cruisers, and submarines, which further increases the cost. Because the Pentagon must also fund submarines, missiles, and stealth aircraft, expanding the carrier fleet would force difficult budget trade-offs. The US Navy, having 11 aircraft carriers, is a careful balance of strategy, law, and global military demands. But with rising naval competition, especially from China, what do you think? Should the US build more carriers or focus on other weapons? Comment your thoughts below.